Are you a yes woman? You say yes to just about everything. Yes to your friends who ask you to do a favor, or yes to your kids who beg for a candy bar in line at the grocery store, or even yes to your ex husband if he asks you to watch his dog because he's going out of town. As women, we're taught that we're supposed to say yes, that no is a bad word. But my guest today is going to share an important lesson. She's going to let you in on a little secret about how saying no is actually the yes that changes everything. Cindy J, the visibility whiz, may be what she's known as online, but as far as I'm concerned, Cindy Holbrook is a superhero. She shares how women can move forward, can step out of that shadow and be seen in their business online. And more importantly, she shows women how they can move from being there for everybody else to being better by being there for themselves, and how that has such a positive impact on everyone. Cindy came from an incredibly difficult background, and she is an example of how the choices you make dictate where you end up if you do not let your circumstances and your past create your future. I'm so thrilled to have Cindy here today to share her message and her story, because she is full of inspirational wisdom, and she's even got an incredible exercise near the end. So stick around and enjoy your time on Real RAD Women today with Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz. Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz.
That's it, exactly.
Is, I think, such a beautiful name for you, for your beautiful, sparkling personality and what you help people do.
Thank you.
And when you and I connected, when you learned that I am helping women who are struggling going through divorce and sharing the stories of women who have created a completely new life for themselves after divorce, and when you said, "Hey, I'd love to talk," you captivated me with so many elements of your incredible story. So I'd love for you to just share with the audience how you came to be the visibility whiz, coming from a place that you might even say was of feeling invisible.
I don't know per se that I felt invisible, but I definitely didn't feel visible.
Oh.
I felt like I didn't own myself. I felt like I was here for everybody else. And so I lived my entire life for other people. And also I lived my entire life with lies that I was taught to believe were true, or lies that I was taught to cover up. And when I was 35 years old, I called her my first coach. I started a new job. And at that time, I was having a lot of marital problems. And she looked at me, my boss and I, we really clicked. And she was the best mentor I've ever had. She really was. I used to always tell her nobody could replace my mom, but she was the next best thing. And she told me, she goes, "Cindy, your life is your choice." And I said, "Man, you are crazy. There's no way my life is my choice. I didn't ask to be abused as a child. I didn't ask for my husband to be having this heavy mental affair with this woman, and whether or not it was sexual, nobody will never know. And I didn't ask for my husband to say he didn't love me. I didn't ask for both my parents and my grandmother and 10 deaths in my immediate family within a 2-year period. I didn't ask for my 14-year-old daughter to get involved with gangs. I didn't ask for all this stuff. And I'm like thinking, there's no way I chose this, right? It's, how is my life my choice? No wonder I'm upset and depressed and suicidal and, everything else. And she's like, "No, your life is your choice, because all this other stuff you're talking about are circumstances that happened, but you have the choice in your mind of how you are going to deal with each of these things." And that really began my self-improvement journey. I started reading a lot of books, started understanding who I was as a person and why I did the things that I did and why I believed the things that I did. And and started letting go of that. It was my job to make everybody in the world happy. It was my job to do what everybody else wanted me to do, and that my job was to take care of me. And that was huge. Transferring over to take care of me versus everybody else, because I would eat, like with my, I was sexually, physically, mentally abused by my father. And when I was 18, I got married to my father minus the sexual abuse. So my ex, it just continued to control me. However, also he was an adult child of an alcoholic. And he was your classic textbook adult child of an alcoholic. So my current husband, he always tells me, goes, how did Earl ever sit there and let your father around your kids and let your father over at Christmas? I just don't understand it. And I'm like, because he was an adult child of an alcoholic.
The denial, the fantasy that you don't talk about it.
Yeah, that's it. You don't air your dirty laundry. That was like one of his favorite sayings. You don't air your dirty laundry. And so therefore to him, it was like natural, because he had so many skeletons in his closet that he just took on my skeletons and put them in the closet too. And
closet, isn't it?
Very crowded closet. And also, we met when we were, we met when I was in 9th grade. We started dating when I was in 11th grade and got married right out of high school. So he took on the role of controlling me because I was used to being controlled. And so I don't think he was this horrible person. I always say I can make him sound like the best man that ever lived or the worst man that ever lived, depending upon which stories I tell you. But we definitely, having two toxic people together that have a lot of baggage in their past, especially at such a young age, we number one, we grew apart, but we were both so toxic ourselves. And whenever I started my self-improvement journey, I know a lot of things even shocked him back then, because he never, he passed away when 7 years after I divorced him, but he never found himself. He never found that peace that I found with my past and with everything that happened. But he, all this stuff was happening to me, but my father always kept me quiet by saying, if your mother ever found out, it would kill her. So he sexually abused me from the time I can remember till I was 16. When I was 16, he was teaching me how to drive, and he was talking sexual talk to me. And I just got really brave. I don't know, something. I stopped the car, literally, like on this busy street. I pulled over, stopped the car, got out, and I'm yelling and screaming at him, telling him, that he was this horrible person and a father should never talk to their daughter that way. And I just really freaked out, and nothing happened after that. However, a key thing is this happened a year after they passed the National Child Abuse Law.
Really?
So before then, there was really no laws, and people didn't know how to handle things. So because they were talking about this on the news, child abuse, and they were telling kids, and this was the beginning of tell kids whenever somebody touches you, it was the beginning that he was probably, people might listen to her. So
you think that that's where you found that voice for yourself, that you were hearing over and over the advertising campaigns from the
it possibly could. I remember just being tired of it. And I have no idea why he stopped with me. I don't know that. Sadly, very, very sadly, my daughter believes that he abused her. She doesn't remember any specifics. And she even asked me not too long ago, she goes, Mom, how could you let me around Grandpa whenever you knew what he did to you? And I'm like, I was in denial, plain and simple. I had to protect my mother. That was like really and truly my entire life. That was like this lie that I was taught to believe, that my mother's well-being was 100% in my hands. If I told her about the sexual abuse, it would be horrible. So therefore, when my daughter was younger, I couldn't tell my mom.
Oh, what
And
a
I remember one time, if anything happened, this is when it happened. My mom was begging me to take my daughter on vacation with her. And I kept telling her no, but like I ran out of excuses because she
right. And
wanted
so
to so
it's
bad.
like a game, a chess game.
Yeah,
Trying to figure
exactly.
out how to
And
protect the queen.
yeah. And Amy says, she doesn't remember any specifics. What she does remember is number one, she always felt creepy around my father. Number two, she never wanted to be alone with my dad. She always made sure her brother or her cousin was with her. And so she really has this really strong feeling that something happened, not that she's trying to make anything, remember anything, but she just thinks something. And when she first started, this like broke my heart. Like I didn't protect my daughter, but this was even a whole other thing I had to forgive myself for to move forward. So I had this like crazy past. And my mother did find out and died of a massive heart attack 2 days later. So that after being told that for 30 some odd years and then it actually coming true, I felt like I killed her. At her funeral, I was hitting Earl going, I wish it would have been my dad, wished it would have been my dad. Then I found out my dad had a brain tumor. So then I thought that I killed him too. So I was going through so much self-hatred, self-guilt, because I honestly believed I was supposed to take care of everybody, make everybody happy. If you wanted it, you had it, because that was my job. And so to start taking care of myself was this whole other world. And I I finally got the courage through my mentor boss, helping me in all the books that she was giving me and talking to me. I got the courage to leave Earl because he definitely wasn't putting me first. I mean, he did some horrible things and said some horrible things for years. So it was a very, very toxic. And plus, I was very religious at that time, going to church regularly. And my church kept telling me I would burn in hell forever if I divorced Earl. So I didn't want to burn in hell forever. So I stayed with him. But there was this constant struggle with me. But I finally decided that my God wants me to be happy, that he didn't want me to live in this place that I was afraid, every night I was afraid of what was going to happen. And my kids were, I didn't even realize how suppressed my son was until after I left him. People were always like, man, Brian blossomed after you left Earl. But I think it's because he felt free. He wasn't afraid of all that turmoil and yelling and screaming in the house. So about a year after I left Earl, I met my current husband. And up till this point, I still did not believe in mental abuse. Sexual abuse, yes. Physical abuse, yes. Been there, done that, right? Understood that 100%. But when people talked about mental abuse, I thought it was a bunch of hogwash. So I was in the truck with, my husband's name's Mike. I was in the truck with Mike. And we were drinking like a 32-ounce soda from a fast food place. We went to this park to sit there because my son had the football team at my house. So we went to the park just to chat and be alone without all the kids. And I spilled this soda all over Mike's truck. And Mike jumped out of the truck and he had some bags in the back of the truck, and he started grabbing his truck, started cleaning up the cleaning up the soda that I spilled. I curled up into a ball facing the passenger side and just started like rocking and chanting, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Mike looked at me and said, baby, you have nothing to be sorry about. And I just started sobbing because I wasn't used to being treated nice. Truthfully, my father and my ex would have called me every name in the book, plus some. They would have told me how clumsy I was. They should have known better than to allow me to drink in their vehicle. That was my life.
That's what you hear. That's what you think you are.
And so when Mike, and I was ready for that. I was ready to be yelled at, screamed at, cussed at with my whole, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And Mike sat in that wet, sticky seat and held me for 3 hours while I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And that's when I decided, yeah, mental abuse does exist. And I was so far into the forest, I couldn't see the trees. But Mike, I mean, he went through a lot with me. And one thing Mike always did, he would force, the way he controlled me, he forced me to make my own decisions. He would not make any decision for me, literally.
How angry did that make you at first?
It was really hard. It was really hard. It was because I was used to people telling me what to do. I mean, I honestly would like call up Earl. If I was sick, I would call up Earl. Is it okay if I call in sick to work? Right? I mean, I was so that I couldn't even make up my mind. Am I too sick to go to work? Right? So I
Yeah.
remember even doing that. Well, really, I think something happened. But I remember calling up Mike, going, "Do you think I should go to work?" And Mike's like, "What do you mean? Do you think you should go to work?" Right? Because I couldn't make any decisions. So it was really this journey, the first half of my life, this journey of not owning my life. But after, I met Carol and I started getting into my boss, her name was Carol,
Well, the man-
and started going into my self-improvement and met my husband. And I dated him for about 3 years before I even moved in with him. And then we got married a few years later. But he still to this day encourages me to be me. And he supports me whatever I want to do, regardless if he agrees with it or not. And it's so interesting to me, having somebody who really truly has that unconditional love and support for you versus somebody that just sees you as an object to improve their lives or to make them happy. And so when I started, I always, always, always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was born an entrepreneur. When I was 10 years old, I lived near the Los Angeles riverbed, and on one side there's a park, on the other side there's a golf course, and the golfers would lose their golf balls inside the LA riverbed. Dangerous place to play, but we used to play there all the time. So I'd go to the riverbed and collect the golf balls, take them home, clean them, take them back to the golfers to sell them, so I had money to spend at the park. And
why, look, this even has your initials monogrammed on it, sir. How convenient.
right. And so, gosh, my whole life, I sold Tupperware, I sold Avon, I sold Crystal Princess House, I sold life insurance once, I did telemarketing, I sold all kinds of stuff, right? It just was always in me, and always trying to find something that would really sustain the lifestyle that I wanted. So when the internet came out, I'm like, this is like my answer. I totally. An interesting fact is that, the internet was really new, but I'm very into genealogy. So when I first got my computer home, I was all excited. I typed in genealogy to the search engine and one thing came up. So anyways,
now type it in today.
Yeah, you get all kinds. But I used to transcribe things for Ancestry.com. That was actually one of my first quote unquote internet jobs.
Wow.
And then, but I was always looking. On September 10th, 2001, I opened up a Yahoo store, and I used a drop shipper, and I sold pewter figurines. And it was very interesting. I'll never forget the day that I opened it. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I got it all open. I went to bed all happy and like, yay, I have it up. And I woke up to 9/11. And I was like, but I did pretty well selling pewter figurines. However, I had to, take their pictures and put them on my website and write descriptions. Now, up until that point of me writing these descriptions, very few people ever read anything that I wrote, anything, because my father used to always degrade my writing. He would tell me that I would be a laughingstock if I showed it to anybody. Mm-hmm. Now, when I was in 6th grade, I wrote a 50-page short story. My teacher was so impressed with it. She had me type it out, and we put it in the library of the school. But also, she sent it to a publisher friend of hers, who sent me a letter telling me that I was a good writer and I was creative, and that as long as I didn't lose faith in myself, I would have success as a writer at an early age. Wow. But with my father constantly telling me that I would be a laughingstock, I stopped letting people read what I wrote. So when I left Earl, I had actually threw away 3 books that I wrote. Nobody never read them but me. Wow. I didn't really read them. I wrote them, but I did read them because I edited them. And so
totally get it.
so me writing these descriptions, like for somebody to read what I was writing, was big for me. But within a couple months, other people started copying my descriptions.
Oh my goodness.
Other people that were using, drop shipping, and I was like, well, it must not be too bad if other people are copying them. And so I started feeling a little bit better and a little bit better about my writing just because of that.
Uh-huh.
And then in 2005, I found it was another business venture. I still had my pewter figurines, but I had discovered about affiliate marketing, basically placing ads on Google and then using those ads to sell affiliate items. And so most of those items were, short things. So I opened up this site. This was right around the time I had told you earlier, my husband used to weigh 500 pounds and he was experiencing a lot of health problems, which really weren't related to his health, but he knew that his weight, but he knew that his weight would catch up to him and make some of his health problems worse if he didn't do anything about it.
And he's a big man too, isn't he? He's very
he's 6'2". Yeah. And so, and he was very active, even being 500 pounds, he was very active, very mobile. I mean, it just, he was always heavy his entire life. And so he didn't want to do the weight loss surgeries because they're very scary whenever you start reading about them. So I started researching different diets. Now, back at that time, there's tons of diets online. So what I did is I became an affiliate of all these diet websites, including Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem and everything else. And I was placing Google ads to go to my website. Oh. And I was doing very well with that, very well. And then in 2008, we had what's called the big Google slap. And my business died overnight. But even writing these reviews, my website was called On a Side Reviews, but writing all these reviews started getting me feeling, okay, it's okay to share my writing. So I started from these descriptions and I started like with these diet reviews. And so I was moving up in the world, like getting more confidence to share what I wrote. And I had the Google slap and I was doing some other stuff. But then in 2009, I found out about coaching.
Google slap, did they basically do away with the ability to do the
what Google slap when they changed their algorithm? And because and one of the big changes they made was going against the diet world. And since the diets is what I was making my money on, it hurt me. And even though I had permission from these companies to use their names in my for ads, they wouldn't allow me to place ads.
Oh, interesting.
Just for the natural, because I was for 4 or 5 different diets, I was like I was in the top 10. I was on the first page of Google, my website itself, for like 10 different diets.
So you'd search Weight Watchers and your website would come up as an option. And then
right.
Away.
And whenever they changed their algorithm, it didn't come up no more. Nowhere. So it was like they really, and it wasn't fun. But it was just crazy because they overnight. And I tried to revive it a little bit, but just wasn't doing. So then I created another website and I was trying to recreate what I did with diets with self-improvement and the law of attraction and the secret, I was like utilizing all that stuff. So I was going this other direction, but this is huge. I tell everybody with visibility too, you have to have a specific message that you're telling people if you're in business. If you're in business for yourself, there's 3 pieces of real estate you need. You need, number 1, your own URL. You can't be hosted through another site. You can't have a free website. You have to pay for your own hosting. Number 2, you need your own mailing list, because your mailing list are people that raise their hands and say, I want to know more about you. And these are hot leads. And number 3, you need your brand. And your brand isn't necessarily your logo and your colors. That's a part of it. But more than anything, your brand is your message. And you need this clear, concise message that you tell people over and over and over again. And when I was doing personal development, I didn't have none of that. I built that site because I knew about SEO. I built that site to where I was getting over 20,000 unique visitors each month to that website, and I was getting no sales because I was all over the place. I was about relationships. I was about divorce. I was about food. I was about diets. I was about law of attraction. I was about everything, man. So, and there was no clear message, and you can't do that.
Sure.
Then in 2009, I discovered coaching, and I was like, man, that's it. I've worked in social services. I can help everybody.
That's every person who goes into that thing. So it's like, yes,
yeah,
I can save the
world. And so my first year of coaching, I made a whooping $500. And so then everybody talked me into becoming a divorce coach because of my experience with my ex-husband and everything. So I became, and I was really, again, with his don't air your dirty laundry. I decided even though he had been dead for years, I mean, that voice in my head was very loud. And when I decided to become a divorce coach, I swear he haunted me. As I said, he passed away a few years back, but I swear he haunted me. I had a medium friend tell me to tell him, just, it's okay, you go away. I'm not saying anything that's not true.
It's not about you, Earl. It's not about you.
That's it, exactly. And but it was an interesting period of time. But my second year of coaching, I made 20,000. So just from niching, I went from 500 to 20K, which is a huge difference. And then I just continued to grow my business after that. Now I live in a very remote area. There's 24,000 people in my town, and we are literally 90 miles from any other place. I mean, a lot of our specialists, our doctors, are 100 miles away because we have to drive that far. Like in my town, our stores, literally, we have a Walmart, we have a Big Five, we have a Home Depot, and a couple years back, they brought in a Marshall's and a Joann's. We have two Albertsons and one Stater Brothers grocery stores, and that's it. Wow. That is the shopping in this town.
Wow.
And so if you want to go shopping, you go 100 miles.
And those stores all pretty much have a little bit of most anything and everything you could need to survive, to get your stuff. But then it's like special things, you're out.
Yeah, that's it. And so, and I was working 40 or 50, 60-hour weeks. So working that much in social services, it wasn't realistic for me to drive 100 miles to give a 15-minute speech to get clients. It wasn't realistic for me to drive 100 miles to do networking. It just wasn't. So I had to utilize all my experience of online, which I had a lot of it from all my past experiences, to get seen by my ideal audience, to get known as a trusted and in-demand expert, and to get clients. And so I was able to retire, take an early retirement from social services in 2011. So after 2 years of becoming a coach, I quit my day job and took my business full time. And what happened that's when I started going to networking and conferencing things. And a lot of people would go, Cindy J, how did you get on Huffington Post Live? How did you get on Prevention? How did you get on eHarmony? How did you get on the homepage of MSN? How did you get all these places? Can you show me how? And I said, sure. So I started coaching other entrepreneurs while I was still coaching my divorced women, because that was my niche. And back in 2017, I decided to retire my divorced women and concentrate on the visibility. And that's when Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz, was formed. And that's when I created my website, cindyjholbrook.com. And but it was a journey to get there. But however, sometimes we think, oh, we wasted our time or we went through all this, but it's all a learning lesson to get us to the next step that we need to be. And as far as being visible, I look back and think, even being on camera, that this was the hardest thing, visibility, that I did, was being on camera. I was always good face to face with one or two people and maybe even a group of 5 to 10, but being on camera terrified me. Like my first videos, I was trying to talk about confidence, right? Because I was teaching my divorced woman to be confident.
Yeah.
My name is Cindy. Today we will be talking about confidence. and um, and confidence is nothing but a state of being. And if we wait till we're confident to do something, we'll never get anything done, because we have to practice it to get confident doing it. I'm confident on camera today because I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced more. And all of this is, it's being visible. And it's standing up for yourself, saying that what you want, asking for what you want. There's this saying, a no is never going to hurt you. Never.
True. So true. And so often we go to great, great lengths to avoid hearing no, when no is the best thing we can hear at that time. Yeah, it's so true. It's a hard lesson to learn.
And something else too, it's one of my favorite sayings, is every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. And so often as women, and especially the first 30 some odd years of my life, I was saying yes to everybody and everything else and no to me. And as women, we do this so much. We think that we have to do things for other people. I had a client, she was just so cute, but she was going nuts trying to start her business, run her business, and all these neighbors and family members was constantly asking her to do all this stuff. And she was like, yes, 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 yes. Right. And finally, I helped her gain the confidence to start saying no, to realize every time she was saying yes to these people, she was saying no to her. She was saying no to her business. She was saying no to her livelihood. Sometimes she was saying no to her children. Sometimes she was saying no to her husband. It's like, what are you saying no to when you say yes to all these other people? And she said it was very interesting because she really found out who her true friends were. Because how many people just stopped once she started telling them no, they stopped coming around. Once you start saying, no, I can't watch your kids. No, I can't pick your kids up. No, I can't go to the store for you. No, I can't this for you. They just stopped hanging around her. And I'm like, and
me, bye.
Mm-hmm. And she's much happier now because she is able to say, you have to know what you're saying no to and what you're saying yes to. And sometimes it's not super clear all the time. Oh. But bottom line is you always need to ask yourself, whenever you say yes, what you're saying no to. If you're saying no to somebody, what are you saying yes to?
So important. And I don't think that we do that very often. Mm-hmm. It's not something we just have that automatic response. And like you said, as women, we're raised to be these pleasers, these givers. Mm-hmm. And part of that means saying yes to everything because it's not polite to say no. It's not, mm-hmm. Or people won't like you. And you know what? I think one of the most empowering things, we can learn in life is that's totally fine if people don't like us. Everyone doesn't have to.
And even further with our family, sometimes it's really hard especially as mothers. It's like we want to say yes to our children all the time, even when they're adults. It's like, at least me, and I know other mothers have told me the same thing. But whenever your children get older, even if they're 7 or 8 years old, it's okay to tell them no if they want something. It's okay to. It is. Whenever they're adults and they want to do something, it's like sometimes you need your alone time, your time, and saying no to them is going to help everybody. Whereas if you say yes to them, you give in to them, then you wind up being cranky and not being so nice to your kids or your husband or anybody else because you haven't taken the time to take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah. And you're not helping them in the long run either. And it's so important. You've said it so many times as you've been sharing your amazing story about the discovery that you need to take care of you and take care of yourself. And what's so important is that it's not a selfishness that is something to be afraid of or ashamed of or something that you can't look at. It is that self-care and that self-recognition that is actually a gift to all of the people around you that you do love and care for, because that better you is not just better for you, but it's better for everybody else too. You're showing up in your best way.
One other thing, just all about taking care of, and because I do think it's a part of taking care of yourself, is if I handed you $100 and said, here's a gift for you, what are you going to tell me?
Thank you, Cindy.
Right. But if I say, well, Melissa, you are just glowing today. Your hair looks perfect, and I love the outfit you're wearing, and you look great. What are you going to say? Depending upon your mood, you might say, well, thank you, Cindy. Or you might say,
yeah.
Or else you might say, you're crazy. Oh God, my hair wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. This old dress. Right. So what you're actually doing is you're dismissing a gift. My compliment to you is every bit as much as a gift as me giving you $100 or $1,000. So, people, they get into like little arguments like, oh, I'll pay the bill. No, I'll pay the bill. Blah, blah, blah. But it's all about letting people give you gifts. That's part of self-care, and it's hard because the only reason you don't want to accept gifts, whether it be a compliment, $100, or them paying for your lunch, is because you don't feel worthy.
So right. That's such an excellent point. I'm so glad you said that, because it's so true. And accepting even that small, what may seem like a small compliment, that is actually so huge and so valuable, and to allow it for yourself and to allow the giver to give the gift. It's amazing.
If you do a good deed, and a compliment is a good deed, remember this. Yeah. If you do a good deed, it's proven that. So if you're standing in the grocery line and the person ahead of you is short, $5, and you go, here, I'll pay the $5 for you. Well, number one, it enhances the happiness of the person who received the gift. It enhances your happiness for giving the gift, and it enhances the happiness of everybody that's seen it happen.
Yeah.
So this is how we impact the world. It's by giving. It's by sincerely giving and sincerely accepting. Because if I were to say, hey, here's $5, and I go, oh, no, I couldn't do that. No, and they just walk away and go, there's no way, or I can't believe that person tried to give me money. What, they think I can't take care of myself? I mean, there are huffy people like that.
Sure.
But the reaction of not accepting the gift is taking away everybody else's happiness, because you didn't accept that gift.
You're so right. There was an experience once. I mean, it's so close to home. I was trying to teach my children a lesson about kindness and generosity, and the beauty of the anonymity of being a random act of kindness. So we went to the grocery store, and we gave, and this is, mind you, in an earlier stage of COVID where you're still going to the stores, but you're wearing a mask, like you're kind of anonymous anyhow in a mask. And people are, and this was like April, so very guarded still about things. And we went into the store, and I gave some cash to the cashier. We bought a couple of things, and then I said, all right. And I looked, and I made sure there was no one behind me in line at that point. So I said, this is for the next person in line. This is to go toward their bill or to cover their bill, or, whatever. It's $20. And I really wanted to make this point to my kids. And they're like, I want that 20. How can you just give $20?
Right.
And what was amazing is that my kids are slowly learning these lessons, but the cashier, the person working at the cash register was astounded. And you could see how, as she was processing, the huge smile, the impact that had on her, knowing, wow, that is so nice. And this is something we want to do. This is just, the world needs more goodness, more happiness. This is a way to spread, pass it on. And it was just awesome. And then it was funny because we heard just a little bit, and it was nice to hear because, of course, but not knowing, we heard the conversation as we were leaving the store, with the person who was the recipient
Yes.
of that random act, and not having to be gratified publicly,
Right.
recognized for it was just a really important thing. And it's still selfishly self-fulfilling happiness. We
Yes.
felt so good doing that. It's such a great thing to do.
Yeah.
So excellent.
And it's one thing, with Earl, even me, I mean, we were always more givers, and then doing random acts of kindness and different things. But my son was like about 4 years old, and he had went somewhere with his father, and there was a homeless veteran, and Earl could just tell that this guy hadn't ate and stuff. And really, Earl was taking Brian to breakfast, so he invited this homeless veteran to breakfast for them. And so Earl got to know the guy. The guy was very gracious. But Brian, the whole time, he's only 4 years old. He's like, Daddy, why is this man eating with us?
Of course, kids are very, who are you?
But Brian, when he was, whenever he was 17, I had went somewhere and I came home, and he had this lady in our house. And I'm like, we lived in an apartment building. I'm like, who is it? He goes, well, she has Alzheimer's and she lives over there, but her family's not home. And I didn't want her to be by herself, so I brought her home. I'm like, how many 17-year-olds would do that?
That's amazing. It's actually showing you did pay attention. You seemed like it at the time, but you did.
Yeah, and even to this day, he is a giver. He will help people, and because he was raised that way. And so I think with all mothers, whenever you teach your children that you pay that couple extra dollars, or you do like you say, hey, put this towards the person behind you, because you are spreading so much happiness and joy, and you just don't know what you're doing. I know one time I was in the grocery, I was in it was like a mini mart. It was a gas station mini mart thing.
Sure.
And there was this little girl, and she wanted a candy bar or something, and her parents just didn't have like that much money for it. So I said, well, I'll buy it for her. And her parents were so grateful for me, but I was like, I don't want her to, and they weren't buying like bad stuff, but this little girl, she just wanted this candy bar so bad. So I asked them, I'm like, do you care if I buy it? Because I thought maybe they just didn't want her to have sugar. I wanted to make sure that it was
your child.
Especially, so if it's a child, always make sure it's okay with the parent. But it was, you just do things like that, and it really spreads happiness. But it's also a part of your own self-care. And if you're not caring for yourself completely, you're not going to be able to see all of these gifts that you can give the world, where you can really change the world. And all of this is a part of being visible. It's a part of speaking up whenever you see something that you can help with. It's not just standing in the background going, oh, that's just the way the world is, or, or those people are on food stamps, or, those people are probably doing something else, or, how dare them be so mean to their kids, because you have no idea what their life is like. And you can make the biggest difference, the biggest impact of people's lives. And it is by you just stepping up and being a little bit visible and doing these random acts of kindness.
And that comes full circle from your whole story, and being in that background and not standing and standing up and finding your way to that. I think, Cindy, it's so inspiring. And then the fact that you not only have done that for yourself, but have shown others and are out there sharing and showing others how they can do it that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, to be able to share with others how they can come out of wherever they are to get into that place where they want to go next and move on and build that new life.
Mm-hmm. You have a choice. Everybody has this choice. You can either let your past define you, or you can choose to create your own, who you are. And that was the basic gist of what I started with my mentor telling me, Cindy, your life is your choice. I had the choice to allow my past to define me, to be this object for other people, and to allow myself to be used by other people. As a child, I did not have that choice.
Right.
My father was a horrible, horrible person for many of the things that he did to me and my siblings. However, we did not have the choice as children. And we do as an adult. And we have to, as an adult, we have to, even when I was 16 and I faced down my dad, it was at that time I think I had made a choice that he wasn't going to mess with me. But I didn't realize how much mental crap was inside of me where I allowed him to control so much of what I did for years to come. But the more I learned that all the stuff that he did, none of it was on me. It was 100% on him. And as an adult, sometimes, we get into situations, we get into, either jobs we hate, relationships, or we're having problems with our children. But it's always remembering whatever happened in the past, even if you made the biggest mistake that you could think of. Believe me, I've made a lot.
Same. Yeah, but it's back. Hey, the great thing about it is it's back.
It's like you can't go back and change it. You just got, like I had mentioned earlier with my daughter. I can't go back and change that.
Yes.
Absolutely cannot change that. But I 100% believe this. You are exactly where you're supposed to be right at this moment in time. You're here based on every single decision that you've made. And where you are a month from now is going to be based on the decisions you make today and how you move forward. And you always have the ability to move forward and to truly leave the past behind.
If there is one thing that I so strongly want people to understand, because I 100% agree with you, it's that's the foundation of
everything.
Of everything, of your life. And it is particularly essential if you're trying to make a change. If you're trying to move on and build a new life, you've got to accept and understand that you have a choice. And your choice is to choose differently than what you're doing now if you don't like it.
That's what.
Yeah, it's
your life is your choice. It truly is.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Well, I am so grateful to Carol for sharing that with you at exactly. And I mean, and when you think about it too, Cindy, there probably may have been a point in your life prior to that moment where if you would have encountered that information, you wouldn't have heard it.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's definitely true. And it was.
You wouldn't have chosen to hear it.
Everything, and as I said, everything happens. And also, if you don't hear something the first time, you're going to hear it again. And it's you being open to being able to hear it. I did, up until that point, I was going to a therapist for a couple of years. And so had I not even gone to that therapist, I probably wouldn't have even been able to hear it and move forward. But I was going through the therapist because I believed I killed my mother, and I had a good therapist. He had me repeat like 100 times a day is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the wisdom to change the things God grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And there's only one thing in this entire universe you can change. And what is that?
Your mind.
Right.
You can change the way that you choose to do things. It's
exactly.
Cindy, thank you. This has been such an empowering conversation because you are an amazing, incredible example of someone who lives exactly. You practice what you preach, and you show. What's so funny when I share that you are where you are due to every choice you have ever made, and the choice is yours. Usually one of two responses come up. I get the head nod and people that agree and yeah, or I get the pushback and the response, you don't know me. You don't know my life and what I've been through and all of the things that have happened to me. And it is you are such an amazing example of it. The circumstances don't matter because they are the past. They make up a lot of the things that you are responding to and how you choose, and you can choose how you manage your way through that and go beyond.
And the thing is, when people are saying, you don't know what happened to me, they are stuck in the past. They're living in the past. And, I don't care. I hear stories that I think are far worse than mine. Some people are totally appalled by my entire story, think that is so horrible. And so many people tell me, I'm so sorry you went through what you did. I'm like, I'm not sorry for anything I went through because it made me who I am today. I'm not saying, some of it, especially as a child, it was just life to me. And you get used to your life, whatever it is, whether it be bad or good. And one thing's going to affect different people differently depending upon what your life is. For example, I had a client, she found out her niece was being sexually abused by her father. And she was just so freaked out, like, I should have known this, I should have that. And I'm like, you can't, number one, beat yourself up. I mean, because you shouldn't have known because he knew what he was doing. And I'm saying and you keep thinking, what this little girl's going through, but you don't, because it was normal to her. As sad as it sounds, it was normal to her.
Sure.
And people always talk about it. It was normal to me. I didn't know any better. It was my life. I was brought up with it. And as an adult, as I got older, I started thinking, wow, these things should not happen. But as a child, little child, 6, 7 years old, I honestly thought, that it happened in every family, but nobody talked about it.
Sure.
And so you have to realize that regardless of what you've been through, people's been through worse. But I'm grateful that I came out the other side, because it puts me in a position to help people that are wanting to put their past behind them and move forward. And, a lot of times create their own successful, thriving business, especially women. There's so many women in today's world that are, stepping out of whatever crap they had to handle in the past and move forward and be leading examples to other women, but more importantly, to our daughters, to the younger generation, so that they can grow up and really be empowered with their entire feminine selves, with who they are, without thinking that they were put on this earth to serve man.
Right. And not yeah, you are not less than, and yeah, you are not the duty that generations before have really felt that was the purpose. So it's
Right.
Yes. How, for two questions, what kinds of resources, do you have any recommendations if someone is watching this and identifies very much with your story of sexual, emotional, any kind of abuse? What would you suggest, maybe if they're thinking of taking a step to get some help, where they go or what they research?
I'm not per se against therapy, but I honestly think coaching. Go to Melissa. I think coaching. I think coaching really and truly, because you know what the main difference between therapy and coaching is, and most people really, I don't think really 100% get this. With therapy, some therapists are different, but most therapists, it's just the way it is. Their job is to go to your past and explain why you are the way you are. Now, sometimes we need to know why, but sometimes it doesn't, most of the time it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
But as a coach, we say, this is the way you are, and this is where you want to go, and how fast can we get you there? So a therapist typically looks to the past a lot more than a coach does, and looks to the future less.
Yeah.
My coach too was constantly, well, no wonder you feel this way because your dad did this, or, but it didn't help me really grow and move forward. What helped me grow and move forward was Carol, because she was constantly asking me questions. And the law of attraction, not that I knew it back then, she was like, who would you be without Earl? How would you take care of your kids? How would you do this? So my mind started expanding, like, how would I do all this stuff? Right? Because I'd been with Earl literally my whole life. And, since I was, like I said, I met him in 9th grade. We started dating in 11th grade. It's like, I really couldn't see. And his family was my family. And since most of my family was dead, it was like even this deeper connection to him. But she got me thinking. She wasn't like, well, naturally you feel this way because all these people in your family died and this happened and that. She's like, what would you do if? And that's what coaches do. And I very rarely have heard therapists say, what would you do if?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I have one big benefit that I personally received from therapy. And I also am not against therapy. I did not have a great therapist. But what she did do for me was show me the fact that I was at such a low point and such a point of just, I was desperate for some kind of help and I didn't know where else to turn, did not even know what coaching was at the time. And my insurance covered the therapy. So I was like, okay, I'll go. She taught me that it was okay to talk, how much better it feels, and working through and not sweeping the things behind the curtain or under the rug or the shame and the we don't talk about those things. Being in a space and understanding the benefit of that feeling was really where I began to, and interestingly, she told me that I should become a therapist. And that was the beginning. And I knew I didn't want to be a therapist, but that was the beginning of really my understanding of how much joy working with and helping people getting to that future point, getting to where they want to be from where they are is so important.
Yeah, I want to give a really powerful exercise.
Yes.
And it has to be verbalized out loud. It has to be. But whenever you're under stress, and regardless who you are, especially where I was back in the day, where a lot of women are that are going through divorce or struggling with dealing with their past, you are this big giant ball of emotions. So picture this big giant ball. What it is, it's a whole bunch of strands of yarn. Now, have you ever seen a big giant ball of yarn that's all tangled and stuff, right? So this is all your emotions. Every strand of this yarn is a different emotion. And whenever you start pulling out strands to try to get this ball of yarn untangled, you start pulling them out. And pretty soon you just pull out this magical one and the rest of them fall away on their own. So with this exercise, it's like this ball of yarn. And you have to sit there and you have to, first of all, write, I feel sad. I feel sad because my father abused me. I feel sad because Earl pays more attention to Annette than me. I feel angry at Earl for what he said. Right? I mean, just, it doesn't have to be, it can be anybody. I practice this to this day. Like if I get angry at my husband or my son or my daughter, or I'm starting to feel a certain way, I practice this to this day. But you have to write down all your feelings. Now, know that one thing that happened, and it's why I actually came up with this exercise. Now, as I said earlier, my mother died 2 days after finding out about the sexual abuse. So I felt like I killed her. Exactly 1 week to the day, almost to the minute, Earl told me, I don't love you anymore, but I'm going to stay with you for the kids. And then soon after, my father died. And so I felt like this orphan, and I felt like I only had Earl. About 3 years after the fact, I was talking to my best friend, Liz, and she's like, Cindy, do you know, you can never mention your mother dying without mentioning Earl not loving you. You can never mention Earl not loving you without mentioning your mother dying. These are two separate events. You have to separate them and deal with them separately. And this was really like one of the best pieces of advice I ever get. Now, we do this with circumstances. We intertwine so many things, and some of them could be with the same person. I mean, I was angry at Earl for his timing. I was sad, but it made me feel more alone. I felt more alone after my mother died because I felt like I did not have Earl. And so you sit there with a paper and you write, I feel, and you can feel sad and angry and frustrated and mad and all kinds of things about the same thing, but you write them down on a piece of paper, and then you say them out loud. As you say them out loud, you ask yourself, how much anxiety do I feel in my body when I say this statement? And you rank that from 1 to 10. Now you want to start with the 10s and 9s and 8s, right? You want to start with the ones that are high. So, so I would just sit there and then out loud say, I feel sad that my father abused me. I feel sad that my father abused me. And literally, I would keep saying that statement, nothing else, just that statement. Other things are going to start popping into your mind. Other feelings are going to start popping into your mind. But just say exactly that for 10 to 15 minutes and nothing else, because we don't feel our feelings. We don't, everybody says, let your feelings go through you, let your feelings out, but we don't. If you say this to yourself, it's not going to work because you're not letting your, but by verbalizing them, you are letting them out. So sit there for 10, 15 minutes and just say that statement. If you take one of these each day, if you do this 15 minutes each day, within a month, you're going to be a whole new person. And I'm not saying that all of your feelings are going to be gone, but it's a great exercise. It's work magic in my life. It's work magic in other people's lives, because we're verbalizing our feelings.
And they're not controlling you. Naming it and giving it that attention speaks to it and says, I see you. Mm-hmm. Now you don't have that power over me because you have been called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it gets hard as you're saying it, man. You can start crying. Yeah. You can choke up, and you just sense what's happening in your body, and you just know that you're okay. You're safe. Wherever you're safe. You know, you're safe in your bedroom, you're safe in your living room, you're safe in your car. I've done it everywhere. You know, you're safe wherever you are.
Great place. But the car is a great place because you're in like your little
but you know, your heart might start, hurting and clenching up. Your head might start feeling like it's going to explode. Your throat might start. I mean, I've had all these different feelings, but whenever you think about it, whenever you're verbalizing this and all these feelings are coming up, if you're suppressing them, they're staying inside. And this is what causes illnesses and stress and everything else. So it's letting it out. I had a client when I was a divorce coach. Whenever she hired me, she goes, don't you ever, ever tell me to forgive my ex. And this was like literally, this was our agreement, right? Because she was adamant, I am never going to forgive him, blah, whatever. And about within a month of her working with, and I never mentioned the word forgiveness. I didn't. I stuck to my end of the deal. I had her do this exercise. And about a month, she goes, wow, I've forgiven my ex-husband. It feels so good. It feels so like releasing. And I can't believe like all the world has just been taken off my shoulders, and I have forgiven my ex-husband. And it was funny because I never said it. And that's the power of this exercise. So regardless what you're going through, give it a try. And again, you're safe, but you have to allow yourself to say this thing. Yeah. A big thing to remember is if you say, I feel sad, I feel frustrated, I feel mad, I feel angry, I feel unloved, any of those things, those are feelings. Okay. If you say, I feel like Earl should treat me better, I feel like, that is not a feeling. This is a belief. Yeah. And so that's a whole other aspect where you have to go. Yeah, exactly. It's a belief. So anytime you catch yourself saying, I feel like, it's a belief. It's not a feeling, because like only fits if it's a belief. It doesn't fit if it's a feeling. And you want to deal with your feelings because that's what's keeping you stuck. That's a lot of what's keeping you stuck. Whenever you let go of all these feelings, then it's easier to deal with the beliefs and say, my big thing with beliefs is go to Byron Katie.
Right.
Is this true?
Right.
How do I feel? Is this true? Right. Byron Katie has 4 questions. Is this true? Am I 100% sure that it's true? Who would I be without this thought or belief? Am I willing to let it go?
Mm-hmm. Power.
Yeah.
Power. That's amazing. Cindy, how can people find you? You're visible. So tell us.
Yes, I'm visible. First of all, if you want to start your own business, or if you do have your own business, feel free to check out visibilitychecklist.com. Awesome. And you can download your free copy of Visibility Checklist. This is a short checklist for you to be more visible online with your business. And also my website is my name, Cindy J. Holbrook, HOLBROOK.com. Or an easy way is just to Google Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz, and you will find me.
That is so awesome and so important. So much gold that you share today, from the advice, from the very honest sharing of your experience and how you approached it, because it's a choice. The exercise, everything. Cindy, thank you so much for being a guest today.
You're very, very, very welcome, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Oh, mwah. I will see you soon, because you're
okay. I will see you. Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Real RAD Women. Are you in the process of your own reinvention? Visit radnewlife.com to find out more about the resources and support you can receive to help amplify your progress. Find out where you are in your process and exactly what you need to do next to take the steps to move forward, and connect with a community that understands your experience and supports you. Again, visit radnewlife.com. And don't forget to tell your friends about this channel, and don't forget to subscribe.